Well, nice to see everybody. Welcome to Ops Experts Club. I'm coming in hot out of another meeting like back to back, so I'm sorry if we're just feeling a little crazy this morning. I'm feeling a little crazy this morning, but I'm excited. I'm not presenting this morning, so that should give you all some peace of mind. Actually, the amazing Savannah is presenting this morning, so I'm pretty excited about that.
Oh,
right? Savannah always has good stuff to talk about.
sure.
But I think that obviously great to have everybody back. It's great to have team back together. I mean, Daryl hasn't been here for like, have you been here in 2022 yet? I didn't know, Daryl, have you been here yet in 2022? Oh, wait.
That's messed up.
Oh, man. Anyway, I'm excited about our topic today. I feel like it's weird how when you start having conversations in business and you're talking with different business people and clients that we work with, I feel like we were just talking about that. We're just talking about today's topic. It felt like just a day ago or 2 days ago with another client who has experienced this exact same pain point. And we've been talking about how we framing things up, and we plan out weeks in advance, but as we looked yesterday at the content, me and Taryn and Savannah, I was like, we just had this conversation with X, about their certain situation and the application of it. So I am super excited about the application of what we're going to talk about today. And the topic is fully collateralizing platforms chosen. You know what I mean? So like, and I would say if you could shake it down to one thing, it'd be like commit. And so if you have a problem with commitment today, if you're on our show and you're having a hard time with commitment, I'd say maybe this is going to be a tough one for you. But I would say, don't you think that's really what it boils down to, Savannah, is if you're going to engage in something, engage in it. Don't like dip your toes into 10 different things and then wonder why there's confusion on your teams. Like fully collateralize the platforms you're using organization wide. Savannah, what are your thoughts on that?
Absolutely. And I do have a point on that. And so Aaron and Taryn are baller and they can just like jump in and just like talk about a subject. I have mom brain. So I made a slideshow because I need like bulleted notes to keep me on task. So speaking of being off task, I just have to let everybody know that there was a man that just went full George Jones down my street, and he was just riding a lawnmower down the middle of the street like it was his motor vehicle. So Wyoming life.
Welcome to Wyoming, right?
The sun's out, the lawnmower's out. Anyway.
I didn't know you had neighbors.
Oh yeah, so I'm in the town. I'm in like the big city part.
Wait. How many? What's residents? Like how many people?
I think we have like 2,000 people
2,000
in
people?
Afton. There's like 10,000 people in the entire valley spanning 35 miles. So, but anyway, so yeah, I'm in the big city part. I got like a restaurant to choose from and stuff and like a gas station. So,
Now, if you count Pizza Hut, you know what I'm saying? Like that's the restaurant to choose from, right?
Hey, we got some culture. We got Pizza Hut. We got Taco Time. We've got Burger King. We've got
the seafood place is pretty baller, right? Like
we got seafood flown in from Oregon.
Can I just say this? Anytime you're 3 states landlocked, I would always say be a little careful on the seafood, but they do have a seafood place in Afton.
They fly it daily from Oregon, from the Oregon coast.
So they say
they have a guy. So and we have a Mexican restaurant. And now we have a Chinese restaurant and we have an Indian restaurant. Like we're like coming up in the world.
Cultural.
Yeah. Like I can get curry. This is a big deal.
Are they all white? Is everybody that working in white though? That's the next question.
Well, the Chinese restaurant is legit. I think the Indian restaurant is not legit. But I'm going to take what I can get,
I'm so sorry for that sidetrack, everybody. I didn't know it'd take that long. I'm gonna keep quiet.
I love it when it's your fault because usually I'm the sidetracker.
You just can't get me going because I'll keep going. So I'm gonna go to my slideshow now to keep me on task. This is why I have this. Oops, Aaron, can you let me share?
Yes, I guess. I wouldn't let Taryn, but I'll let you.
All right. So we're going to be talking about communications best practices. So kind of broke it down. Here's an overview of the things we're going to be talking about. So one, kind of what Aaron talked about is committing. So you want to be a minimalist. You don't want to be like dipping your toe in 17 different programs. Establishing communication SOPs, that's super important. Designating a hall monitor. So kind of having someone who's okay with being the bad guy to keep people on these communication SOPs to begin with. And then kind of the same as one, but on the flip side, start small. So start small. We're going to talk about if you've already kind of accidentally dipped your toe into a bajillion different things and you're trying to pare it down and you're like, oh my gosh, this is like so much. How am I going to pare this down? Start small.
Yes.
So don't know about you, but like if I get 17 different notifications, especially if they're different notifications, but for the same task, like I just turn off. Like I'm not going to get to it. I mean, I'll eventually get to it, but like I'm going to steam about it for a little bit first. And I'm going to like turn my phone over or close my laptop and step away because it's just too much.
Wasn't the exact quote from Taryn yesterday? If you want the easiest way for me not to reply, hit me up on more than one device.
At the same time.
That's right.
Hey,
Yeah.
I just emailed you. Did you get that email? And then you get it on Slack. Hey, did you get my Vox about the email I just sent you?
Like, oh my gosh. Yeah. So if you want to cause your team burnout, have 17 different programs to, take care of a few things in communication that can be handled by a few programs. So it's important to ask yourself before you sign up for a program and expect your team to be using it, why do you need this platform? Like, can this platform already do you already have something that the team is using that can technically do this? So a lot of the communication software these days is multifaceted. Like it's not just, an all out group message. You can do individual messaging, you can do group messaging, you can do calls, you can do, so it's important to be looking into what is the end goal that you have for this new communication that you're getting this shiny new toy for. Like, do you already have something that everybody's already trained on that you can utilize that in a different way? So you don't want to just see a shiny toy and sign up for it. You want to be really intentional about what you're signing up for.
I'll give you a quick example about that is we talk about G Suite. G Suite has a Google Hangouts function, which is free for everybody in your G Suite account. Zoom is great, but does everybody in your team need a paid Zoom account, or do only certain people who are scheduling meetings need a paid Zoom account and everybody else can have a free Zoom account? Because if they ever need a meeting, it's probably just internal between somebody else. They can utilize Google Hangout links to schedule those meetings. So you end up saving some money there. You still have the Zoom account for external people you need to schedule with, but your whole team might not need that $30 a month seat.
That's a great point, because some of these software programs, they get really expensive depending on how many seats you need. So, so there's that aspect of it too. If you're a startup, you don't want to be paying $10 to $30 a seat when you don't need one. So something else that's super important is establishing communication SOPs. And I think that this is something that often gets overlooked because, like, of course you're communicating, like you hire on people and you all have jobs to do. So of course you're going to be telling each other about it and communicating that back and forth. But what happens when things scale really fast, you might have a small group of people that are used to going to the visionary for everything. So they are used to just texting them, calling them, walking into their office, and as things grow, the visionary doesn't have time to be dealing with all this. And even some team leads don't have the time to be dealing with all this. So you want to kind of establish a set of channels and a set of lanes that people, like, if you have a customer experience employee, they're going to go to their customer experience team lead first. They're not going to go to the visionary and be like, this customer is mad. Like, that's the visionary doesn't need to know that yet. If it becomes like an overall thing, that then the customer lead is like, oh my gosh, that actually is a tech issue. I'm going to take that to the tech team. And then the tech issue, people can talk it out. And then they take that to tech lead, and tech lead goes, I'm going to take this to the big lead meeting because this is actually an overarching program issue. You know what I mean? So it might not need to go to the visionary, and it might, but it's important to stay in these channels so that way your visionary isn't bogged down with like day-to-day, my button's not working. I'm going to take us on a little field trip for this part.
Yes.
Love field trips.
And we're going to go right
to on field trips.
You know what I loved most so far of what you shared about was somebody that's going to create boundaries and tell people when they're wrong. And I can't wait. I love that Ben on our team gets to do that for Daryl. That makes me so happy that Ben gets to continually keep Daryl in the right lane. Anyway, let's keep
on. So this is something that Aaron actually has Collab Team go through when we sign on. And so this is just kind of like a best practices for within the Collab Team. And right within it, he makes it clear from the get-go, these are the programs we typically use to talk through, and these are the instances in which we use them. So he outlines when we're going to use Voxer, which Voxer I think is like, you have to be really intentional with Voxer because it's so easy to get a hold of each other on, kind of like texting. But with the thing with Voxer is that if you aren't paying for it, like those messages aren't held on long-term. So you can't go and search something later. So if you're dropping like a deliverable to somebody and you need to, and maybe it's like 2 weeks out and that person's going to need to refer back to that, like Voxer's not a great place for that unless you're also communicating like, hey man, this needs to go into Asana, or, can you like email me an outline of what you're going to do by end of day? You know what I mean? Like for long-term tasks, Voxer is not a great option for that. And I think that people use it. It's one of those shiny ones, you know, it's nice to use. It's convenient. It's nice if you're on the go to be able to send a voice message really quick. But so just, you want to make sure that you have SOPs in place so that your team's all super clear on how you're using it.
And I think, can I just jump in there with you on that?
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
will you scroll that down just a little bit so we can see all of it? So what the reason why I have this as part of the onboarding is like, if you get a deluge of water, right? Like if you get, like, hopefully my daughter lives in Arizona, right? They get a ton of rain. And if you're not set up to be able to handle rain, like if your sewer system isn't intended, like how do you channel all that water to get it off your streets? Like that's how flooding happens, right? So a lot of times it's like all your people, they want to do right by you and they want to be attentive. We're assuming the best about our people, right? They want to do what you want them to do. And so they're going to be super verbal, or they're going to want to be communicative. I think give them the channels the way that you want them to communicate with you. Like otherwise you can expect flooding and then you're overwhelmed by the flooding. And then sometimes you get frustrated with the flooding, but it's like, if you would just set up for them exactly how you want them to be communicating with you, then you're giving them an expectation they feel good about. You're creating something that works well for you. And so that's what, and me trying to line this out for them is, hey, if you're going to get a project from me, team, that's going to probably be coming by emails that then can be escalated into Asana, because that way you don't have to wonder, I'm not going to get on a Voxer and give you a bunch of tasks, because I found that with Voxer, those can get lost, but if I give you an email, and if you'll notice here, we don't have Slack mentioned here. That's because Collab Team doesn't use Slack internally. We use it for customers. So like a lot of customers have different Slack channels, but for us, we found we're pretty project based. So email that's going to send into Asana, there's going to be a communication around. And Savannah, tell me if I'm stealing your thunder. Am I stealing where you're going?
Oh, this is fantastic.
Good. So email is going to add a project that's going to escalate into an Asana. And then there's going to be conversations inside of Asana in comments around that project, but it's siloed down to just that project. That way we're not blowing everybody up. Whoever's been assigned that, we can have conversations around it by the people that are collaborating on it. Quick response, that when I put quick response there, and I should probably adjust this because I've got quick response twice. But what I mean by that is if something's on fire, the fastest way you're going to get in front of me is with a text, but I don't want you to text me. What I want you to do is either use email or use Voxer, because those are our main choices. And Voxer is like intended to be, give me some, if you need something that's quick, just quick response. If you need just a quick back and forth, but don't give me a bunch of details they're going to want me to track. Let's use email for that. And by giving them those different understandings, it's email for bigger projects, Voxer for some fill in the details, and then text if something's on fire. I've given them kind of a triangle of communication. And then from there, it goes on to how do we do video conferencing? We lean into Zoom as a company. How do you do tutorials and troubleshooting? We're going to give you Looms, and just giving people like understandings, and then I have it there at the bottom, client IM communication. We're going to live in other people's ecosystems of Slack. But that we thought early on about, should we do a Slack? But it was like, why? Just so we can have another Slack channel? We're all in each other's projects enough. Like, let's try and hone it down to simplest place. So sorry,
You don't
Samantha.
need another notification. So yeah, so Voxer is figuratively on fire. Text is literally on fire.
Yes, good. I like that.
In Voxer, I guess there's a small like side note I'd say about Voxer. Sometimes it's great to just verbalize something. So maybe it's not urgent. Sometimes I'll get messages from Aaron late at night. He'll preface it with like, this is just me verbalizing. Don't listen to this. You've got till like Monday, like, don't worry. And so it's just a good way to like verbally process something that might take like 10 emails back and forth to work through. So it is great just to have that resource to speak things out rather than type them out.
It's definitely a good like real-time communication tool, almost kind of like an IM kind of thing.
And I found too, like with depending on how small your team or how big your team is, Voxer can be great for a visionary to have, because then you can just put something in people's ears. I'm just going to drop this in your ear. I'm going to drop this in your ear. I'm going to drop this in your ear. And then us ops people can go and process that out in communication channels elsewhere. Because you can't expect your visionary to be super organized. That's just not his jam. I mean, his jam is to have the vision, or her jam is to have the vision. So it's fine. Like, give them a channel, they can get that information to you. And then it's our job, probably as ops people, to go and make that easily digestible by our folks.
Perfect. And yeah, so just coming back around on encouraging boundaries. So again, we're trying to avoid team burnout. And so if you just kind of have, spaghetti thrown at the wall, seeing what sticks, burnout's going to happen a lot faster. So communication SOPs even go down as far as like, you might have, hey, don't respond to stuff after 6 p.m. Your time, like that's your time to be at home. Like, we might send you messages, but like, it's not your responsibility to respond. That's a really great example of a way that you can encourage a great company culture by helping your team set boundaries, especially where a lot of us are working remotely, working from home. The temptation is to just keep working around the clock because we can. And so you can really help set a great company culture by setting up these SOPs. So I got to use a meme for a show reference that I like, so I'm very excited about this. I don't know if people have watched Little Britain. It's like a super weird sketch comedy British show. So this is one of my favorite parts, and it's just, he says, computer says no. So this is a great way to help your team keep those boundaries. Once you have set your SOPs, everything takes muscle memory. When you first launch out an SOP, there's going to be some people who don't like it because they don't have those strong boundaries and they're used to doing something a certain way. And it's not that they're like rude not having boundaries. It's just the way that they've always done this since the company might have started. And so muscle memory, you might say, okay, we're not going to the visionary anymore for little problems. It needs to be like this, this, and this to go to the visionary. And someone like has always talked to the visionary. What are you talking about? We're buddies. And so they might start like tagging them and things and sending them messages anyway. So when you're launching out these new processes, it's really important to have a designated person who's okay with maybe being a little bit stern with the team, isn't troubled by maybe kind of looking like the bad guy, to just come in and gently underneath people's messages being like, hey, that would be best directed to this person. Hey, remember that goes in this channel. And shooting looms, calling people out. That's usually what I get to do. So you just want to make sure that it's not someone that's going to have their feelings hurt if other people are a little bit like spurred by it, because it's a prickly subject. People don't like change all the time. So it's important to have someone who's okay with being a little bit of that. I want to say bully, but it's not a bully.
Well, like, and I say they'd be nice, right? Like Savannah is such a sweet soul, you know what I mean? So when Savannah corrects you, at least you know Savannah's a sweet soul. You know what I mean? Like she's not there to be harsh, but she is going to correct folks on just keeping them in the lane. Like, don't
sometimes they'll accidentally call you out in a loom and share it with the whole company, but I'm not intentionally.
Don't make Daryl the hall monitor because he's not nice. You know what I'm saying? But like, choose a nice person. You know what
I'm a
Yeah.
sweet soul, okay?
I'm saying? I want to ask Mama. Let's get Mama on the call and see if she would consider you a sweet soul. That's what I want to know.
How can you be a sensei and be nice, Daryl?
Right?
Okay.
Yeah, we don't want to like slap people on the hands. You don't want to call someone dumb. Just want to like, just let them know there's a better way. So basically they're just holding people accountable, keeping everyone in their lane. So, if someone's in customer experience, they need to be talking to their customer experience lead. If someone's in tech, they should probably be talking to their tech lead. And really they only need to be the bad guy for a short amount of time. It's just while everyone's kind of getting their feet under them and getting used to the new process. To start with, they might be having to re-guide people, 6 times a day. And then as it goes on, it might be once every few weeks, someone makes a snafu and it blooms. And then they have to just go in and remind them, hey man, there's an SOP for this. So if you're someone who gets excited about platforms and has done a bajillion platforms that your team is trying to keep up with, and you realize that you aren't able to create effective SOPs because you have so much going on, don't panic. You can kind of phase things down one at a time. And honestly, that's probably better for your team. Even if everyone's already like burnt out and is ready for change, changing a whole bunch at once isn't going to fix the burnout. You're going to stress people out. People aren't going to know where to go. It's good to just kind of like wean people down to the more focused channel that you want. It's also important to listen to your team. So for what Aaron was just talking about, the client that we just have been working with, their stress is they have a lot of different communication channels. And part of the reason is because like some of the team is really comfortable with one of the communication channels. And another part of the team that's a little bit younger is comfortable with another one of the communication channels. And so their first step in this is trying to figure out where they can meet in the middle, how they can move things so that they're not ostracizing one team to accommodate another, and making sure, of course, that, it's in the end, it's going to be mostly the visionaries kind of place to decide like their preferred way of communication. But you don't want to just pull the rug out from underneath a team, especially if you have maybe an older group of people that are used to kind of grandfathered systems. Like this is just anecdotal. This isn't like research based, but I've noticed that like older audiences are typically more comfortable with Microsoft. It's been around forever. Microsoft Office is pretty like it used to be the absolute standard in office environments. And so moving into newer things like Slack sometimes takes a little bit more hand holding. So you don't want to just be like, well, that's too bad, we're going to Slack. You want to be sensitive to what people need. So part of that, it might just be more in-depth training, planning things out so you can have, a library of looms that people can watch, more one-on-ones, maybe as things come together, and then and finding ways that that the new software can be similar to the old software, because a lot of them do the same thing. It's just, the muscle memory of going to a new button to do the thing.
Do you think too, like thinking through ways that you can kill and combine? I know that's a big EOS principle of, hey, if we are going to phase from this to this, like, could we kill a couple of different channels and make it all in? Like, I know we had a really interesting conversation with the Prime guys on L10 yesterday morning about Discord, and that wasn't something that I'm super familiar with yet or have been around a whole lot of yet, but they were just talking about similar to Slack, create environments like, but if you are going to move to a new platform like a Discord, what are we going to eliminate as we move to that new thing? You know what I mean? Rather than just adding in just a new platform for the sake of it's a new platform, or if we are adding in a new platform with intention, like, are we doing that for our external communities, but not internal communication? Like, what are we using it for? I think is trying to get clear on.
Yeah. And so on that thread, I did make a little lucid chart here. You guys can all see this, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Aaron
So
I'm so happy that you did.
I love it. Ugh.
So this is just kind of going over like an example of ways that you can kind of phase things down, and you can decide how much or how little time you want in between these phases, but just showing that like someone might have a lot of different ways going on that they're talking to each other. So just being really intentional about what you're paring down first. And this isn't necessarily in any particular order. But personally, for me, I would attack the way that the most communication is happening first. I think that's just an important bite. And I think that the other things will kind of fall into place a little bit easier once you attack that one. So my example here, I highlighted them in green, but if you're working with like both Slack and Teams, then like first migration that you need to kind of focus on is probably moving to Slack. So everyone's in that same, or Teams, if you decide that you want to go with Teams. It just depends on, what your team is more comfortable with. And then from there, like maybe you guys are using Voxer and text both equally and people aren't really clear on protocol. Like, I don't know about anyone else. Sorry, Amelia has a lot to say apparently about this as
So
well.
it's okay. And feel free to pick up Amelia and feel free to include Amelia. You don't have to worry about that.
So just kind of talking about figurative fire versus literal fire. I don't want work people texting me on my home number unless something is like real serious. Hold on just a moment. We got our little options.
Hey, there we go.
There's our angel. I love her. Hi, Amelia.
So yeah, so I personally like, unless something is really serious, I don't want someone texting me at home. I'd rather get, if it's for work, I'd rather get a Voxer, because that is my, designated work communication. If someone from work is texting me, I'm like, oh my gosh, what did I do? And then this one, I know Monday was just an example I threw out. Monday is capable of so many things. So I don't necessarily think that Asana is a replacement for Monday. But depending on how you're using Monday, it might be. But Monday is one of those ones that like, Monday has so many different features. It's a pretty cool program. I'm getting excited about it. But yeah, so just if you're using Monday as a project management software, keeping everyone on their deadlines, and then you're also using Asana, like people probably don't need that double ping on the day that something's due. They probably only need one. So deciding, how many notifications you want to give your team on something, you're just gonna help cull out that burnout a little bit. My last one that I have on here is encourage, don't coddle. So this is kind of coming back to that. You don't want to rip the rug out from under your team. However, you do want to encourage them to be brave and to be strong and to take that step into learning new software, because sometimes it is just that they've done the same thing for so long that they don't want to change. It's not because the software is better. So you don't want to coddle them. You don't want to keep people from growing into being a better team member. So you want to, tell them you believe in them and show them you believe in them, and then help them find similarities in the two programs so that they can move forward. Aaron or Taryn, do you have anything to add on that? I am a very fast talker.
I love it.
It's good.
Got lots of time.
I think one thing we even look at too with communication or task platforms is if you have some sort of CRM with those capabilities built in. With PCS, when we were working through them about whether or not to move to like a project management tool, they realized their Salesforce has tasks built in. So they've started utilizing the tasks feature of their Salesforce account. And a lot of the CRMs, the bigger packaged ones I've worked with, have tasks abilities. So that's a really great thing to start utilizing if you don't need an extra application. So yeah, it's all the way back from the beginning, what tools you already have that can accomplish this. So it's a good way to look at it. And then when you do get to the point of kill and combine, sometimes you work with the finance area to see exactly what you're paying for. And then you start to see what apps you can get rid of. That's usually a good place to start, because you might not even know what apps are out there. But if you start looking at what you're paying for, that's when you realize, okay, these are the ones we have.
That's a good point. You might have like made a juke and like started using something else and then like didn't really put thought into what you already have. And so you might be paying for seats on something that you haven't even used in 6 months. That's yeah, that's terrible, huh?
I think too, probably being careful of the sacred cow. You know, I mean, like I would say, if your visionary is super passionate about one of the platforms, be really careful how you introduce the concept of eliminating things. You know what I'm saying? Because if like what you don't want to suggest to a visionary is that you're going to slow down their mojo. You know what I mean? So if you're like suggesting you're going to cut out the main way that they communicate, or a main way, or something that's part of their like daily flow, I would say enter into that slow. Maybe think about some ways that you could, like looking across the organization, where could we cut down the most amount of confusion or the most amount of communication surge? You know, like how can we eliminate things? But then when you start thinking about that, ask yourself, where does the visionary fit in this like dichotomy? Because if he's the origin or she's the origin, and that's why the communication pattern is all getting a little crazy in this thing, if you suggest moving away from that, that may be better for the team, but it's actually going to like really begin to tie the hand behind the back of the visionary. And that's never going to last. Even if they tell you verbally that it's going to work, it's not going to work. They found their jam, you know what I mean? So it's more our job to identify, how can we work with their jam? How can we see how their jam is working and then process it better on our side, and then give them something of, hey, if Voxer's your jam, hey, will you do me a favor? Will you send Voxers to me and let me disseminate information to team? Or will you try and loop me into that? Because what we're having a problem is that you're creating silos of communication that I'm not aware of. And then it takes me 3 times as long to chase down all the different fires you started, instead of just bring it all through me. And then so for EOS, they do the visionary integrator meetings. And that's a great spot where it's like, hey, this is how communication happens between visionary and integrator. And then integrator can go and begin to implement the cut down on communication surge. But that way you're not like I've just seen too many visionaries try and play the good guy. Yeah, no, if that's what's better for the team. No, if that's a good thing. No, if that's what's going to work best for the team. And it lasts like 2 weeks max. Like they just can't get away from their jam. You know what I mean? And so trying to think through, how can we speak both languages? How can we speak to the visionaries language? Because there are a lot of the times that creates, you know, all of the future motion, but they can also be the one that creates the greatest confusion. So how can we get a channel of getting the future motion, and then we disseminate it out in a logical way that cuts down on communication and moves the whole ball forward? Yeah. Kimberly's like, hey, can we just simplify that? L10s. Kimberly, tell me what you think about that.
Yeah, I want to play devil's advocate for a minute. Is that okay?
Yeah, do it.
Okay. All right. So when we decided that we were going to move into Monday, it kind of started off as like me just trying to manage fires. And then it was like, hey, we kind of really need something like this. And Steven is not a fan of Asana. So it was like, Monday it is. And we also like worked really closely with a third-party team who was using it, could support us in learning the game. So it was like, okay, that just seems like the most logical thing to do, right? So we start building out stuff on Monday. And I was feeling like lonely and Monday by myself. And like, it was like a learning phase, but I also picked up on that, like, this is not Visionary's jam. Like, he is just not like feeling Monday. And he was really used to using Slack. And so one of the things that we did to help during that migration phase, and we still utilize it now, is some Zaps, Taryn Turner, and Monday integrations with Slack, where he could literally just like go into a Slack channel, type something up, and it boom hits my task board. Like, and I can follow up. And then we have an emoji key. So like, if I need approval on something, I can drop it in a Slack channel. It goes into a Monday board as an item. So it kind of works the reverse way. And he can literally like give it a thumbs up, a thumbs down, a green check, or an X. Like, they each mean something, and he can like give approval or like pause something just right there with an emoji. And so that really helped us to like kind of bridge the gap. We needed something for our teams, but we also needed to make sure that we were serving him well and not making him feel like overwhelmed by this new thing. So just kind of like finding a way to marry those two worked really well for us. And then another thing, this is like kind of the devil's advocate. We moved into Slack. So we had some older team members that were used to doing things, and like mostly Voxer and Facebook Messenger, which is not very efficient, as you can imagine. And so we're like, okay, we're going to move over to Slack, which we did. And it looked like it was going fine, but once we initiated a team leader for that team and we started to try to like systemize and structure the way that team worked with their students, it was like, it was just like speaking into thin air, like nothing was happening. And their team leader came to me and she just kept feeling like the weight of that, like I'm just a bad leader. And I'm like, I don't think so. I think it's a like, who am I leading and how? So like these people they're in the disc profile, they're all high S's except for like 2 of them or no, high I's, sorry. They're all high I's except for like 2 of them that are SC, but they also have a little I too. And so like these guys, they love to verbalize things. And so I encouraged her to like, they're in Voxer, they're using that every day with their students. Why not try to just drop some things over there and see if you catch a fish? So she started dropping some lines in Voxer and she found the team was like immediate responsive. And they would kind of hash things out there. So she started using the Slack channel as like organizing things. This is before that team was moved into Monday, but she was kind of like organizing their tasks and their workflow over in Slack, but then like go into Voxer so that they could kind of have a little conversation about it, because a lot of times they would look at the task and just like space out, I guess, or just like not, I don't know, it didn't register. There was a disconnect, but like giving them that space to have the conversation among the team in Voxer was really fruitful for them. And then they started to see some momentum on some of these tasks. And now they're moved into Monday, which is a huge deal for us. So we'll address all that as it comes. But this is super relevant for us and where we are. And I really appreciate you guys presenting on it. But I did want to just throw that out there with real quick, because sometimes we have to remember, and I heard a project manager say that this week that I work with. She's like, I was structuring, it was an email thing. She's like, I was structuring all of this email calendar situation for what worked best for me. But what I found is that's not what we needed. I needed to find what worked best for the team. So to have true traction, we gotta find something that works best for the team. And managers can, I feel like it's easier for a manager to adapt than for a team to adapt. Mm-hmm. And then you just have like meeting them where they are and serving them where they are. And then like we can grow into other things, but making sure that we're doing that in a way that we're still gaining ground and not like kind of repeating this vicious cycle of things not getting done and tasks being dropped and disorganization.
Yeah, listening to your team is so important because like I said, if you just go full, cut the throat of the program that you're using, you might be really alienating some of your people that, there goes the lawnmower again. But it's so important to listen to, every culture is going to be different. Every company culture is going to be different. And the mix of ages is going to be different. And so just being really intentional and thoughtful about where you're going and what you're doing. And I think that's awesome that you were able to also, integrate your different programs so that maybe it's the answer wasn't to just, get rid of something, and you can make it work that they communicate together. So everyone's still only getting the notifications that they want. So you're still helping your team avoid burnout.
I think too, I think some of it might be also like creating channels that work best for people, and then trying to like, what are we trying to accomplish? Like big picture, what's the thing we're trying to accomplish? Like with L10s, Kimberly threw that out. And I know we introduced Daryl's whole team into L10s, and I rolled Ben and Steven at Darren to help, or at Daryl to help him with his build outs. But I could tell even in just our entry conversations with Daryl, like that, I'm rolling a lot new at him, right? Introducing Ben and Steven, letting people into things that he normally would have always owned by himself or with people that he normally extends to. And we introduced Voxer, right? So it was like this whole new set of things. And so, and Daryl, I'm going to pick on you for a minute. So I knew like the different sheets within L10s, it probably was just not going to be Daryl's jam of like what he's going to spend time on. Daryl's a fast mover. He's attacking different things, like asking him to sit down and enter stuff into a sheet before a meeting happens. That's probably not going to be how that works. And so we got to a spot where I'm like, hey, if you have issues, just drop them into your Voxer channel for Ben or Steven to add them into your issue sheet. Like just get on your Voxer and be like, hey guys, this is an issue I'd like to talk about L10. Hey guys, this is and like let your people be the ones that are actually flowing through the system. Don't feel like you have to be the one as the visionary, or don't expect things that are unrealistic out of different people on your teams. Could you create channels of communication that would create what you're trying to get to big picture? If we're trying to get L10 system to work, how can we best get that to work? If the visionary needs some help getting issues added in, like give him a channel that he can just, as he's driving down the road, as he's in the middle of a martial art class, as he's in the middle of whatever he's doing, like drop a Vox. Ben and Steven know the jam. They know where to put that, and they're going to be able to suss that out for you by the time you hit your next meeting. They're going to have it all in the right spots, and you guys can have that communication, because that's really what you want, right? You want to, how can we minimize the footprint on the visionary's life so that we can get done what needs to get done based on the visionary they have? And I don't know, Daryl, if you want to speak to that a little bit, but I feel like that seems like at least it's worked pretty well thus far. But tell me what your thoughts are on all that.
I mean, I love it. It was funny because like this week's meeting, like last week, Stephen was out, so we got to talk about some overall pieces. And then we were talking about a new program that, like I'm moving to. But I felt like this week I was actually running my team. It was really weird because now, I mean, you're talking about that soft changeover and taking the time with the team instead of just slamming multiple things down everyone's throat because it's not going to stick. It was literally like this overflow for me because Voxer, and Aaron's used Voxer with me a couple of times, but Voxer and then all this paperwork that we're supposed to keep up with, which for the beginning, I just checked it right before the meeting started. And then half the time we just went through it during the meeting. And then I realized it just works for me just to talk to them. And then they literally make the things happen that I need to make happen. But Savannah, you're right. I mean, it's hard to throw a bunch of stuff, but at the same time, I feel like making sure the buy-in's there to learn as you go was probably the thing for me, because I felt supported. I felt pushed to the extent of this is for me, this is why we're doing this. And if I don't like it, let's try something different. And also it did help, even though I don't care for him so much, for Aaron to check in with me and make sure that I was getting out of it what I needed to get out of it. Again, I like Taryn more, but so we'll go with that.
Everybody says that. I wish I could say you're original, but that's what everybody says. So the chat.
Yeah, on that same topic, that's similar to what I've had to do for my mom's group, because I'm dealing with a lot of people who don't like being on the computer. And I've kind of been the designated like operations person of my mom's group, because we're like, it's a nonprofit and we do like fundraising and that kind of thing. And I was trying to get everyone to commit to L10 format, like all out, and no one else wanted to be on the computer. And it was driving me crazy. And everyone just likes to handle everything through Facebook Messenger. And so we needed a way to organize everybody's thoughts, but also kind of let people be who they are. And so what we found was similar situation where I'm just like, everybody just like, let me know what you need to talk about at our meeting through Facebook Messenger, like you have been, and I'm keeping track of it on a list. And so I still have our meetings in L10 format, but I'm just taking their brain dump from Facebook Messenger and putting it into the issues so that we can talk about it in an organized way so that we all come back to it and it's not just lost in a big long thread. It all comes back to L10s, doesn't it?
And then I think the magic in that, Savannah, is so then Savannah creates the SOP around how it's to be handled and then delegates and elevates, right? And then she finds somebody else in the mom's group that might be feeling the same way she feels, in a lesser way, but wants an opportunity to grow and say, hey, so this is the way I've been doing it. I've been taking this, creates a loom, shows her how she's been doing it. Would you mind taking that on and just entering those things in? That would really help me. And then that person feels like, yeah, they would love to help Savannah. Yes, they're looking for an opportunity to elevate. Savannah's looking for a place to create more time in her schedule, so that she's created the SOP around it, handed it down, and she's able to now escalate into running the L10 in a way that is cohesive for everybody. So I think it's great when you can start creating these flows where it just, you're channeling the water the right ways, right? You're taking this flood, this deluge, and putting it in the spots you want it to go to. I think it feels like magic when you can start getting that to happen. And Daryl and I talk about it all the time. And I think another good one, because I love picking on Daryl. I would say not forcing tools, right? Like as we start having conversations, Daryl, like Steven, Diaz for Kimberly, his eyes can light up with the idea of new tools. Like he hears about this new tool. Hey, I heard about this new thing. Steven is like, just like chronic. Steven's like more than anybody I've ever seen. Sees a new tool, gets excited about it, so excited about it, wants to plug it in. And I love him for it. Thank God he's always pushing the boundary. But I watched Daryl's eyes light up every time we talked about a new tool and we were thinking about implementing it. And it was like ClickFunnels and Entreport and all these different pieces. And it was like, no, wait a minute. What platform is he on? And then Daryl's wife, Mama, who's the queen of all things and is pretty much the only reason Daryl's success in his life is because of Mama. I think she was the one that found a CRM that was specialized around martial arts studios, right, Daryl? Is that true? Did that come from Mama?
Yeah, she basically got sick and tired of me buying everything under the sun because it was going to work. Yeah. And so I was presented with something that was going to work really well. And then she looked it up and she found something that actually made it look like an intro program because it was so much more. And for her, I didn't have to pay a lot of money for it. Yeah. So it was so much less. But I do have to say, the L10s, Kimberly, we were talking about several different times in several different ways about how you're setting that culture up and you're trying to train them. And you just said it with your mom's group, Savannah. I started using those concepts that I'm learning through L10s it's easier for me to delegate things. Like there's this project with the Cancer Society. And I was talking to a lady who was ideal for getting research done. And I asked her, I was like, hey, do you feel comfortable handling this aspect of it? And then get back to me. And this is how I want to be communicated with. I don't think I would have ever done that before. I think I would have gotten the leads from her and I would have had to try to do the research myself. So I'm starting to see the benefits of my being trained on a way of thinking that's way more effective than me being 6,000 different places at once and then trying to remember it all, Yeah.
And deliverables that come out of each one of those things, right? Because that's the things that we forget is that every time we say yes to something, it turns into more deliverables. I watched Taryn, I'm gonna pick on you now because I just like picking on people. So we were on an L10 a couple days ago or yesterday maybe. And I suggested putting Taryn's name down under a rock on the L10, and I watched Taryn's whole face change. And I just know Taryn, right? Like I've been in the jam with Taryn long enough, and nobody else picked up on it. But I'm like, actually, why don't we actually give that to this? Like, and I totally twisted it and turned it a different way because I realized Taryn and I have had conversations about I need to be careful. This is Taryn speaking. I need to be careful about how many times I show up on people's rock charts because there's so many different customers. If I've got that many rocks on that many different, it just turns into way too many deliverables. So I think to speak to your point, Daryl, it's like, be honest with yourself of if you put your name next to that slot, what does that mean for deliverables for you downstream? Not just initial research, but you become the epicenter of all the knowledge. Everybody comes back to you with the questions. Any to-dos that come out of it, you're going to have to be in the middle of. So I think it's brilliant when you can begin to outsource to different things and ask, yeah, but am I the best person to take that on? And that's what I heard Taryn in my head say when I started putting his name next to that rock, is conversations Taryn and I have had about, yeah, I can do that, but am I the best one to do that? And I thought, nope, Taryn's not actually the best one to do that. Actually funnel it this way. And I think that it's so good when you can get in that flow. I do
have to jump in. It's noticeable, with like the parents and with my clients and the way I show up and speak now. I don't just say yes, because I mean, I say that I don't just take on everything. But when I don't say, no, I can't do that versus saying, hey, is that something you can handle? And then when you get it to this point, I'll take it over and I'll have such and such do it. So I feel like I'm planning better as well. I guess it sounds weird, but I feel like my planning nature is better suited because I've been trained. See, agreement. But but like the training of the L10s and then actually being able to communicate more effectively to them has literally changed the whole play for me and how much I take on, like Taryn, right?
That's like a boss.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, communication SOPs and L10s, they just like help people to just kind of like sit in their gifts. Like everyone can show up better because everyone has better visibility. No one's working in a silo. Like it just helps everyone be their best selves in whatever ecosystem you're trying to function in.
I love that. can really lean into that because I really like the way the one-on-one, the 1-3-1 rolled out. Because when Steven started talking about it, I'm like, oh no, he's going to start convoluting the L10 format. You know, what I mean, like I always get nervous with people when they start like hybriding things together, and I'm like, no, what makes EOS so powerful is that it's so simple. Be careful of how complex you're making it. But I actually thought the 1-3-1 technique actually fit in pretty well with what we try and accomplish with EOS. Do you mind just kind of giving a quick synopsis of that?
Yeah, Taryn can attest to the look on my face when our marketing team L10s got commandeered. I'm just like, no, we worked so hard. But yeah, so on the 1-3-1, it's basically like you bring one issue. So in L10 format, you got your issue, right? If you're in a sheet, you can drop in the notes 3 possible solutions and 1 recommendation. So like, here's my issue, Taryn. I have a problem with this Zap. Okay. And then in the notes, I have, here's 3 solutions. I can cut this Zap and do a whole new one. I can reconfigure the Google Sheet, or I can just try to make this a Monday integration. My recommendation is, let's just make this a Monday recommendation. And then when we talk about it in L10, like, you know, Taryn can kind of gloss over that a little bit and be like, oh yeah, just see if you got an integration for that and come back next week. So that really helps us. That really helps us in issues stay focused, especially when you have a lot of, again, we use DISC. So when you have a lot of I's, when you have visionary in the L10, it's really easy to talk about anything else, the lawnmower, right? Like it's so easy to get derailed, or to like, we'll be in IDS and they'll have like this brilliant idea. And then it's like, let's map that out. And it's like, no, we're in IDS mode. So it really helps to kind of keep things reeled in. Yeah, my children are very familiar with this. I was on a call with Tommy with Prime, like just before we were going to present. And I have a kid come in and he's like, Mom, I got this problem. I'm like, dude, figure it out, come back with some solutions. Tommy's like, yes. But when you've got 6 kids, I mean, you got to systemize. It really does not only, I mean, it might sound kind of mean, but it really does help your people, whether it's your team or your children, to feel empowered. Like, I'm not just coming to you with problems all the time like a leech. I'm coming to you with a problem, and I've been created to bring solutions as well. And here's my recommendation, because my opinion matters. So I think team really likes that kind of stuff.
I think too. I mean, realistically, probably so I work with a lot of visionaries pretty closely, you know, and I think one of the common burns or pain points can be is they don't have all the answers. The bigger it gets, they don't have and they can feel overwhelmed by so many people coming to them for answers. It can be like, they get that all day long. They just get people coming to them and they're like, I have this problem, I have this problem, I have this problem. And like, they don't have all the answers. And so it's so nice when you can actually empower your people to say, you probably have the better solution than I'm going to have. You're the one that's been looking at this longer. So just because I'm at the top of the food chain as the visionary doesn't mean I'm always going to have the best answer. So tell me, what's the problem? 3 solutions, because you've probably thought about it a lot longer than me, because you've been honed in on this instead of the 100 things that people have been coming to me for. And then your suggestion, and if I've been hiring smart people, their suggestion is probably at least 50% of the time going to be the right one. And then that only leaves 50% of the decision making to the visionary. So you just like super clear cutted everything down to very, very sharp pointed like answers you need of the visionary. And a lot of times it just is what is going to resonate with culture or future progression. That's where the answer is going to come from. Okay, what's the problem? Oh, those are your different options. That's your recommendation. Then visionary is like, well, where are we going? Is that going to speak to where we're going? And that becomes a very easy yes or no. Or actually, because we're going this way, let's go with number 2, but you've already given them kind of that fodder for the fire, that fuel for the fire that is going to help them make good decisions.
Yep. And you can position it with team as like, here's a way to get an easy yes, you know, and like make things move a lot faster, and you're not getting stuck on issues where visionaries trying to come up with 1, 2, 3.
And visionaries come up with crazy 1, 2, 3 sometimes. Because you put that pressure on them, and then they feel like they have to bring something good at the table. So then the complexity of their 1, 2, 3s, you're like, why did I ask him? Like, because it's like, I don't want to do any of those 3 things that you just listed, but now like I'm stuck because you're the boss. What am I going to tell you? No, you know what I mean? But like, give them an easy yes. I love that. Easy yes.